Is it 7 o'clock? Yes, it's 7 o'clock. So the planning board has been having extra meetings beyond our regular scheduled meetings in order to get a whole bunch of ordinances done, because we've fallen behind in renewing our ordinances, and we found that our ordinances were not in agreement with state law, which kind of puts one at a disadvantage. And we would like to be in agreement with state law. So one of the first ordinances that we're tackling, a couple of meetings where we didn't have very many people, and then the last meeting we had an audience, which I'm very appreciative of. I love that you guys care enough to come out on a Thursday night, because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've been caring. So it's great to see other people saying, yeah, we care, we like to see what's going on in town. We had a lot of people come to our last meeting 2 weeks ago, and I look at you guys, and this looks like a lot of people again. What I would like to do, an official public hearing. This is just a planning board meeting, it's not a public hearing. I believe in hearing what you guys have to say, because I'm honored you're here. I think it's wonderful. And so maybe at the end of the meeting, if anybody wants to talk, but I think you'll find that what we've got is going to be something that you're going to appreciate and be able to understand and be able to vote for or against, and we'll move on from there. But I'd like to get through it. I'd like to see if we can get something wrapped up tonight, with your cooperation. But I don't want to shut you up. I don't like doing that. You know, I know it's an effort to come out on a weekday night, and so I just assumed we made it possible for you to talk, but if you can hold it off to the end of it. Thank you. So Michaela is here as our draftswoman from Southern Maine Regional Planning and Development Commission. She's been helping us develop these ordinances, and it's great because she's got the experience of being out in other towns, and this is her specialty. Michaela's the one with the expertise. Do you want to talk about what we're doing?
Sure. So last time we got more direction and more questions, so I think I'll start answering some of the major questions from last time. There was a question about can we prohibit all kinds of cannabis use in all capacity? And the answer is no. Baldwin has to allow registered caregivers, which is a term that has a very specific definition for medical use cannabis. And so that is something that, according to state law, Baldwin must do. Besides that, Baldwin can prohibit or limit the number of medical use retail stores, dispensaries, which is a medical cannabis use term, and then all adult use cannabis facilities. The one other thing that any municipality in Maine has to allow is home. So Tracy and I were working together to hear all the feedback from last time and put together a draft that incorporates that feedback and also is easier to follow and to read along with. So major things that were talked about last time that are in this new draft. Other key changes. Tracy, do you want to say?
We also incorporated a lot of further limitations. So any activity that was going to be permissible, almost all of them had further limitations. So we had size and space limitations. We also had disclosure requirements we talked about at the last meeting. So while certain activities have some disclosures, all of those disclosure requirements are included now and outlined, and that includes if there are business names or business entities and very specific disclosure requirements out back. Those were new additions. The other, new additions besides the size and space, we made some further restrictions in the zoning and location. So those were further limitations, and outlined, for clarity purposes about, the structure of the ordinance for clarity purposes, so what can happen, where it can happen, and, exactly what the procedures would be.
Yeah, and then, we built out the licensing, section, so we talked about that, we heard that at the last meeting, we built that section out, and we changed the concern about the state authorization timing, so that is fixed. And we, third one, that was, yeah, those are all the major changes, from what we heard last time, and so that is the draft reflected in front of you all.
So does anybody on the board have any questions about this ordinance as we're looking at it?
About the changes?
About the changes?
I have, obviously, I apologize, I wasn't there for it.
Well,
but,
if you have any questions at all, it's okay.
I had
It's
questions about the electromagnetic interference.
So, that has to do with some lights that are used for grow lights, can overlap into the, electromagnetic spectrum, shortwave, specifically, radio waves, is what we're talking about. And the reason is that, a former chair of the planning board is a shortwave operator and knows about this stuff, and he's a radio frequency engineer, and he cares a great deal about it, and we put this.
So, does he operate like radio equipment?
Yeah. And he tells us that, you can get a G587 or whatever the number, is, and from China, and they will not come through in the whole order, all being the same components. So, you just have to, you can't just say a ramp certified to be not to see with the electromagnetic spectrum. It's just, you've got to check on it yourself, because the Chinese don't. They change what they do from one shipment to another, and even within the shipment.
Hmm.
So that's very important to some people in town.
And apparently there are options available that don't create that interference.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like that would probably need to be put in there with the options or something, but similarly to what's above with the excessive odors,
Yeah.
I feel like that has to be put on all ordinances, all businesses. Just you can't restrict one, I feel like one business and not others.
When we do review our CUPs, we always look, every time we go through a CUP application, we specifically look for, is it gonna create odor or light or other nuisances? It's just the fact of.
Right, but light, I mean, that's for signage and things like that.
Or any kind of light, like even in the disc golf course or whatever it might be. In our standard CUP review, we look for what could be nuisance or hazards. It's just that in our previous meetings and discussions and feedback from other towns, odor was the element in which townspeople had the biggest concern. So we're just saying when that's excessive, we just wanna have an odor mitigation plan. But it would be true for any CUP we were reviewing.
There it is right on the checklist.
Right, odor does.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I feel like it's just not on our.
Standard.
Yeah. But
I think it's like if
it's,
we.
I feel, no, what my, it's just the measurement. I mean, there's no measurement for odor. That's my.
it's hard to govern, you mean?
Yeah, it's hard to manage, but, one second. Let me just finish work and have a look
Sure,
at the email.
sure. Mike, do you have any questions on this?
No, okay.
You good? Okay. And Dawn, are you good? Matt?
I would just like a clarification, I mean, there's been so many changes, and there's purple, blue, orange, green, you know, all kinds of
Yep.
stuff in here.
That will
That-
come up out, but,
Does this ordinance allow, I wanna be careful with my,
medical use or adult use.
okay. I just wanted to clarify that, just because the last time the town voted on this, they voted by a thin margin, they voted against retail adult use marijuana. You know, medical was already in the ordinances, but they voted against it, so I just wanna get it clear in my own mind that this, kind of is not in total alignment with what they voted on the last.
Medical use, and if you look at the first page of your
Uh-huh,
ordinance
yeah,
that you have in front of you now,
yeah,
a retail store is an establishment under both uses, medical use and adult use. But when you go further down to the regulated purposes, it was always a medical use, establishment.
okay.
And now there's just further limitation that says any retail store, which is just a type of establishment under either, has to be in village commercial. But in theory, it falls under the definition of a cannabis establishment in either use.
So, could I ask Michaela a question? Do we have to allow any store at all?
No,
No.
you don't have to.
No.
So what I think Matt is saying, what I hear you say, is that right now, it's illegal to sell marijuana in Baldwin retail. Is that correct? That's what we voted on before.
Yeah, we voted for is that there could be medical marijuana, but not adult use retail establishments or stores. That's
from
what it was before, and this changes that and would allow for it.
Only medical cannabis, no adult use from our current.
So all we have to do is make clear what you want included.
Yes, I think that,
That's all we have to do.
right, so when we approached this ordinance for tonight, since there was, of the people who showed up in the last meeting, there was a majority opinion, but it was not a 100% opinion. So we did a mashup of those two versions, and so the discussion tonight, once like the regulatory side is clear, it's mostly on what you want to move forward in the draft in terms of which uses and which zones. Those are like the key planning board decisions for here.
I don't have any agenda or preference or anything like that. My approach to ordinances from the planning board is to listen to what the people of Baldwin have told us. And so that makes me think that this new ordinance should not allow adult use retail stores for marijuana, but it should allow medical use. Now, that being said, because that's the last direction that the town gave us, that being said, the town not at a public hearing like this, but at an actual, this does not become law in Baldwin until it is voted on at a town meeting, not a public hearing, but voted on at a town meeting. And if Baldwin's decision has changed that the majority of people in Baldwin, or the majority of people that want to come out and vote, have decided that they want, but that's just something that I wanted us to be clear on, here, that I don't feel that at this point, we've been given the, auspices or the, the direction from the people to write an ordinance that allows retail
So,
stores.
have we been given, what, on that train of thought, there's never been any vote to allow any adult use of any kind. So, in theory, this ordinance could prohibit everything except for the cultivation of adult use, period, under the same line of thought.
We never said that there couldn't be medical marijuana because that was on the books. The vote that the town took was on
Adult use, yes,
adult
that's
use.
what I mean. Yeah, so if the directive was to write the ordinance based on what the town last voted for, I wasn't clear on that directive. I didn't hear that.
So let's set this aside and let's find out if there are any problems anywhere else in this ordinance with anybody on the board. And I just want us, find out how the board feels about it. There are chairs across the hallway. If there's anywhere else anybody has a problem, I've got this down, I understand what's being asked. Thank you. And we'll come back, we'll circle back to that. But I just wanted, is this the only issue we've got as a board on this?
Not our whole board is here, so part of our board is not represented, and I guess I was taking into account prior conversations too, but I guess who's here tonight is who's here tonight.
Who's here tonight is who's here tonight.
Okay.
This is not, Matt, by the way, this is not a public hearing. These are just people who want to keep an eye on you. Or me. Yeah. So then I guess we should tackle this. Do we want to, have retail stores not permitted, or do we want to have them permitted?
I think you
Just
gotta,
one question on dispensaries.
Yep. Okay.
It appears that we're allowing it in village commercial, Wednesday.
Okay. And is that what we have?
I don't think that's what we,
well, if it's a retail, I think we have to parse that out a minute, but let's back up. And I just wanna make sure that we stay clear.
Yep.
So let's back up one whole step, hold your thoughts, 'cause I'm following your thoughts.
Okay.
I know where you're going.
okay.
Set medical aside for a second, 'cause that's where dispensaries show up, and I think we have sort of a line of thinking on that.
Okay.
Back to your question, Joe, take a step all the way back from, do we want retail stores? Does the board wanna prohibit all adult use in Baldwin, period? Because if the answer is yes,
Start, and we can go right down. I don't think we want to, eliminate all adult use. We want to allow adult medical use.
those are two different things. So the medical use side is, separate from the recreational or adult use. Recreational
Okay,
used to be the term,
Good,
yeah.
medical versus recreational. I don't think we want any
That
recreational
was my question, yeah.
use
Baldwin.
in Baldwin, because I don't think.
No manufacturing facilities, and no retail stores, and no testing facilities, so the stuff in the Highlands. You cannot prohibit the home cultivation, like the 6 mature plants and 12 immature plants in your own home for your own consumption or use in your family. That's the only part of the state law that says for recreational use, which now called adult use, that we as a town cannot ban or prohibit. But under the recreational adult use side, the town may prohibit or ban every other activity around the recreational and adult besides that home. I grow my own, I use it at my own home by myself. And there are regulations in this draft ordinance for the home cultivation piece because we must allow it. And if that's where it's going, then we just strike all of that and we focus on the medical portion only.
I think it's great to have this as a resource, because if the town tells us that the town wants, the majority of people in town want recreational adult use, we've got a good start on a set of ordinances for how we wanna control it, but, or manage it. But right now, I think that the only charter that we have is for medical.
I have a question. Is there, instead of voting yes or no to pass or not pass, can you vote pass on one or the other?
One or the other, what?
For example, in a public meeting, can we vote on, we're voting on draft one, which is the medical and recreational, or are we just voting on the medical?
So that depends on what the motion is that is made
Okay.
by a member of the board. Yep.
Okay.
We did take, the world of permissible scope, it's really, really, really small already. I don't want there to be a thought that this was a free-for-all in any way. That definitely was not how it was drafted. There was a lot of prohibited and
You did a great job.
excluded
You did a great
activity
job.
under that.
We need something to discuss,
Yeah,
you know, and this is the thing we're discussing.
so let's.
I feel that I wouldn't want a liquor store next to my house. I don't need recreational marijuana sold next to my house.
So let's talk about the
Straightforward,
medical,
to me.
the cannabis establishes for the medical use, which right now does include the dispensaries, retail stores.
Does.
Yeah,
Does.
yeah,
Registered dispensaries may include cultivation.
and manufacturing
For
facilities for
medical
medical.
use.
Yes, we're only in medical when you're looking at this section.
That's what it said.
And then it also includes medical cannabis counseling offices. That is what is a cannabis establishment under the medical use side only. And so the question about the district then is, for the retail store on the medical use side, if we're gonna allow one or not. If we are, we had previously said in the meeting that that could only occur in village commercial with frontage on a state route road. But registered dispensaries may include cultivation and manufacturing facilities, which we've previously said can only happen in Highland District. So we need to be clear about what we're saying and where that activity can be located. We're only talking medical use now.
Only in Highland District.
Okay, including and retail store for medical use or not? No retail store of any kind?
I'm the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and, we did a, survey with, all the residents and taxpayers of, and everything like that. And we didn't ask any questions in the survey specifically about medical or recreational marijuana. But we did get very, very clear, feedback from the citizens about what their vision for Baldwin is. And the strongest feedback was that they want to keep Baldwin rural. They want to keep it from becoming, standish want to manage, commercial growth. And this is my reading of it, is that, I don't see, medical marijuana retail type storefronts as, aligned with the, feedback or vision that we got in the survey of what they were describing they want Baldwin to be.
I'm just curious, when was the survey done?
This year, over the last year.
It was done, yeah,
A year ago.
you got one to do?
So,
Yeah,
I wonder if I wanted marijuana, I could go to Limerick. It's like, how many stores there, 6?
I got to every morning, at least, no.
And so I just,
No.
I wonder why we have to go through this, is, I guess, what I'm saying. Why,
We don't.
we can go to Limerick. We don't have to go very far.
We also cannot forget that it is a type of farming, and it's one of, biggest businesses or whatever you wanna call it in Maine. And it's, so I don't think we can't just go like we don't wanna go through it with it or deal with it.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that, I don't know that we need to do it at all.
I did wanna clarify just with the medical use retail or dispensary, there's, in this draft, it limits signage, so it's, if it's medical use, you can't have like a green cross or anything about cannabis or whatever in the name, so it's basically a directed toward patient thing. It seems relevant to the concern of, what it appears, like how it changes
It's not
the,
supposed to look like a cannabis store,
exactly.
but be all that as it may, I think we're not there.
Yes, I'm
I
here to,
agree.
I'm here to
It is in there, that
share the thing.
you're not supposed to be able to tell from the outside of the signage or from the outward appearance for that reason, but it's, we still can decide whether we're gonna have those establishments.
Exactly.
And I guess, I'm not clear. I guess the registered dispensary doesn't have to be a retail store and can be in Highland District and can include other facilities, or we can have none of that as well. Because that's not the caregiver. So you can prohibit even under medical use, all retail stores and all registered dispensaries and all cultivation, manufacturing and testing facilities.
Yeah.
So even under medical use, you can prohibit everything except the registered caregivers.
And you could
Independently
allow
operating.
one specific, like
Thing.
cultivation is not something that is as, a concern, for example, then you can allow cultivation only, or
But
a
no
testing
sales,
facility.
no sales or commercial activities.
Exactly.
And that could be in Highland only.
Where does it say Highland only?
In the zoning portions of what it's saying, so.
Because it says registered
It
dispensaries,
depends what you're talking about, but here's cultivation, manufacturing, with
a minute, okay, because the registered dispensaries, so we are getting away, we are not permitting registered dispensaries either. Is that what we're
We're
going
talking
to?
about that right now.
Yeah, okay, that's what I
I
thought.
think we're in medical and we're saying no to retail stores. And
Yep.
I'm asking the question out, are we saying no to registered dispensaries as well?
Right,
And then I'm gonna ask you, are we going to allow any type of facility? And then we need to decide if we're allowing these medical cannabis counts or not.
okay,
So we've got these uses or these establishments, these are the type of establishments, and we're going one by one.
and so I'm saying, I guess I care about retail stores or registered dispensaries,
Because
places where people are going and
Yeah.
buying.
Right, so we can prohibit
But-
under medical use all of that,
I really don't care about the rest of it.
okay?
Neither one way or another. it doesn't, yeah,
I think since the signage
Like
is
one,
already
two.
restricted,
Yeah.
then I think we should allow.
Commercial activity. And we're allowing the growing style, quote unquote, activity, like the agricultural piece that would be occurring in the Highlands district.
So,
What is the Highland District actually?
Where is it?
everything over 700 feet above sea level in town is in the Highland District.
So we could, John could pull a map overview, but it's where a lot of the raw land is.
It's very rocky, it's very ledgy, you know, it's 10-acre zoning, anyway,
I
for
think-
all the rest
You
of the
say anyway,
town.
but there's people that live around it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you get power grids that can't handle what they already have. Take a look at these power grids, these grow places kill power.
so, am I reading this correctly, that what we can decide on are these 6 entities, retail stores?
Here are the establishments for medical use that we're talking about. Retail stores, registered dispensaries, cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities, and medical cannabis counseling
1,
offices.
2,
6,
3, 4, 5, 6, that's what I have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and manufacturing and
They don't,
testing, is that?
they do not
okay.
have to go
So-
together, but they're typically regulated together because you can have more than one of those in one facility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Joe, do you want each of us to
Take
go
an opinion
through
on it?
what we think about these 6, which I think you just did?
I think we've looked at
I
The
think
first-
they've eliminated retail stores and registered
4.
dispensaries.
the first 4 items there, retail stores and registered dispensaries.
Are gone.
And we're looking at cultivation, manufacturing, and/or testing facilities and medical cannabis counseling offices.
I, given that Baldwin allowed or did not disallow medical cannabis, I don't feel a charter or a dispensation to, say no to medical cannabis counseling offices, cultivation, manufacturing, or testing facilities, and to Victoria's point about the agricultural aspect of marijuana. But I think the idea of the retail stores or the registered dispensaries, I don't think the town wants Baldwin to be a marijuana destination.
Right. I think
So
you're right.
that's my sense of this.
Joe, I'm gonna do out of this.
Okay.
Short note.
How do you feel, Tracy? Do you want to?
I really feel like I'm a secretary tonight. I'm just a secretary.
Okay. Mike?
No comment.
Okay. Victoria?
I mean, I think we should allow, as we did before, the village commercial district. And
For cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities and the counseling offices,
yeah,
so allow them in Highland and village commercial. We used to allow them in Highland and rural. In our last draft, we removed rural and left Highland only. That was the last revision. We did allow them in rural, which is where they were, I think, permitted, but Bob spoke to that.
What I wanna know is what does the current ordinance say?
I'm just looking at that too.
The counseling office is the village commercial.
Medical cannabis registered dispensers shall only be permitted in the village commercial district. Production facilities shall only be permitted in village commercial district. Further medical, it's very brief. Further medical cannabis production facilities shall be prohibited from operating in the natural resource protection district, Highland district, and rural district. So it was only village commercial.
Makes sense to me.
And that's where we have it That's
Okay.
where we had it but last meeting it got changed,
So, changing things back
okay?
To what?
to,
Village
cultivation
commercial.
is permitted only in the village commercial district.
So is this cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities?
Only from village commercial.
But not dispensaries still, which is a
We've,
change from.
we've already prohibited dispensaries altogether, yes.
Why would we want cultivation in
All
a
adult,
densely,
yeah. Yeah.
densely populated area?
I don't agree with that.
I think the reason that the cultivation, manufacturing, and, testing facilities district was changed away from the current village commercial was for it to be in the area where the lot requirements were 10 acres. The idea was it was going to be not in a residentially dense
populated area,
area.
where you had to worry about setback distances to.
Well, and
Right.
odors and,
Voters.
But Matt, you would just assume we just eliminated cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities. Is that, am I understanding you?
No, I think that we wanna eliminate the retail stores. I'm okay with eliminating the registered, dispensaries.
Yep,
I think we should keep cultivation, manufacturing, and or testing facilities, but they should really be in the Highland District and or possibly in rural, but in village commercial. I think counseling offices are okay for village commercial, but I think the agricultural aspects of medical marijuana should be in farmland.
I think we should add rural to that.
I think we should, if then we should keep it as village commercial, as it was in our current ordinance, and rural.
Is there, would restricting it different, like, putting different size limitations based on the zone, would that help?
I don't see any advantage to that, any real difference.
Like reducing the size of the potential facility depending on the zone it's in and therefore how much, like, land it potentially has to be used as a natural buffer. A thought.
in other words, if you're going to have that in village commercial, it can only be yay big.
Right.
If you're gonna have it in Highland or rural, it can be the 5,000 square feet or whatever we were talking about. So I get where you're going, and I think that level of detail is helpful, but I think, to Matt's point, it's probably overdeveloped in terms of what the town is really ready to think about doing.
I do take the point that we don't really want, commercial development in the Highland District because it's so ledgy, and the roads, a number of the roads in the Highland District are, the selectmen are already under a lot of pressure to improve them and put money into them, and, I'm not sure it's a great answer. It just, it's a difficult place to live. I have sat in selectmen's meetings in the winter and heard people come and complain about not getting plowed out. And this would be, I think we'd be asking for trouble, for sure.
Good point.
Okay,
And I think that's why, I mean, I know you're talking about village commercial and, you know, having a lot of houses and everything, but that's why we have the setback in there too.
yeah, I think from a practical perspective, then we really need to think carefully, because I think the rest of what flows here then about size and distance and, had in mind a larger overall.
We could say that, that the facilities had to be on no less than 10 acres.
I think
You know, so that there was room enough for that.
Yeah, and that
Human
eliminates,
participation.
doing the stuff in the village commercial district.
Yep.
That makes sense. I think what we problems in terms of cultivation, manufacturing, and testing with, residential areas because, I mean, you know, people have moved to Baldwin to get away from the odors and, you know, other areas and stuff, so we should try to head problems off before they happen rather than, and you know, we also, as we were talking about today, Joe, and Don in the comprehensive plan, there is a lot of pressure in the country and in Maine to increase housing stock. And, Baldwin is not going to, escape that. And one of the things we're talking about is how do you allow for that and at the same time, meet people's desires to keep Baldwin rural and woodsy. And, you know, there's this, concept of walkable communities. We're discussing whether, the, building lot size in village commercial should be less than 2 acres. You know, to allow for more housing. So, you know, if any part of Baldwin is gonna increase in density, I would think it'd probably be village commercial. And that's why we probably want to segregate the, cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities into.
The other thing to add that is, you know, we're dealing with LD 2003, which is gonna permit another unit on every village commercial lot, which is gonna be, you know, just totally, impacting every lot.
Number 3 here, to include a minimum lot size of 10 acres for cultivation, manufacturing, and or testing facilities, and, permitted in the rural district only.
Can I say something? I think it would have to be in relation to how big of a building or whatever building you are building, because I think you're having a small cultivation, of, I don't know, 2,000 square feet, let's just say, and you have to have a 10-acre lot, I think that doesn't make sense.
I think what people are looking at is not wanting a 2-acre lot,
Well, of course,
you know, so,
but then if your building is 5,000 square foot, you can't build that anyway on a 2-acre lot.
right.
So I think it has to be in relation, but having to say, like, you have to have a 10-acre lot is,
10 acres is land in Baldwin now, is still, people have 10 acres, you know.
right, but I mean, we got lucky, we got 10 acres, you know, but like, now trying to buy 10 acres,
Trying to buy any land at all.
yeah, it's not, it's
True.
expensive.
True.
But that's part of creating a natural buffer that we're trying to accomplish, I think.
Yeah, we've heard people talking, whenever I talk with people about marijuana growing, they talk about the odors. And so rather than, as you say, it's tough to find, how do you define an odor? It's something I can smell, but you can't, or vice versa.
I will go back to my argument with cow manure.
But, well, there's nothing wrong with cow manure.
Yeah,
But,
If the concern is I'm just here to throw out different options and get the direction, but, if the concern or the approach is based on acreage, does it matter what zone it's in?
No, except what Joe was saying about the roads. In Highland, there was a concern about the roads, and so I think the reason why you came back to rural was that reason, is that right?
that is correct.
So I think that that's why we actually stuck with rural.
But asking for a buffer, that's by putting it on a 10-acre lot rather than a 2-acre lot in the middle.
I like that combination, Joe, with the zoning and the, size.
Now,
It's logical.
one question I have, if it's a 10-acre lot size minimum and it's, you're like allowing the cultivation facility, right now in the ordinance it says it would prohibit someone from their house being on that same 10-acre lot. Is that still?
If it has to be the primary use.
Right,
Yeah.
and so, is that what you want? You want to make sure, like, the business owner is not living, on, like, their house is not on that property? Is that something?
Or do we wanna change that?
I think if you're in the rural district,
You can live there.
you should be able to rest there.
We can
I-
live there.
I don't have any problem with that. I think it's probably more secure, the facility is more secure if the owner is living on the property.
And for the cannabis counseling offices, the medical counseling cannabis office, we can continue to permit only in village commercial, correct?
That makes sense, you want people to be able to access the county easier.
So as you then, if we go down to further restrictions or further regulation then around what the cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities are, or are gonna require, right now we have that there can only be 4 total in all of Baldwin.
What page are you on?
The very next page, right now it's 415 at the very top, quantity of establishments, small 2. That was just listed from a prior draft, and, the number of quantity was part of discussion tonight, so that can be no more than 1, that can be no more than 2, that can be no more than 3.
So I have on my copy here, no more than 1 cannabis.
No, that's the retail store, we struck that,
That's
we're all
that,
there.
yes,
Yeah.
okay. No more than 4 total cannabis establishments are permitted in the Highland District.
Well, we just changed that
We
to
just
rural,
changed that
and
to rural, yeah.
I'm with you, but it's
I'm
right
trying
now
to-
just 4.
And by cannabis establishments, we mean.
Now we mean cultivate,
cultivation,
manufacture,
manufacturing.
testing, or, we also include that, counseling store. So it means we can only have whatever we say,
Double check, was mental health, or the counseling store still?
it's an establishment.
What was that, so that's also not village commercial?
That is, that's
So that's
staying,
still.
that's staying village
Okay.
commercial. But the number of total establishments in all of Baldwin, we want to restrict the total number of them. We had a goal to do that. We need to decide what is that number.
Why wouldn't we be just restricting that to 1? If we have to allow 1, then,
You don't have to allow any, so I think the question is, if you decide to allow for, you know, the tax benefit purposes to the town, or whatever whatever the reason is, personal property rights, whatever, then the question is, how many do you want?
We could say 1 counseling office and 1 facility.
Yes, you can regulate it that way too.
One
However you
retail,
want to regulate.
one
Not
retail
retail,
store.
no retail stores, 0.
All right, so retail stores is out.
Out.
So we gotta maybe make that more clear as
That,
to what.
this is gone already, we're changing as we go. All we're talking about right now is we're going to allow medical use, cultivate, manufacture, testing facility, and the cannabis counseling.
Permitted in village commercial.
The counseling, yes, the manufacturing, cultivation, and testing facilities is rural 10 acres of land.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if you're operating any of that, are we gonna restrict the total number that Baldwin wants to like 1 of that, or 2 of that, or do we just take it as a CUP comes, or?
How many, in terms of medical marijuana, how many cultivation, manufacturing, and or testing facilities do we currently have in Baldwin?
No idea.
how many, marijuana growing, testing, counseling, whatever facilities?
Well, we don't know most of that, but I'm pretty sure that there is a medical marijuana grow facility, at least one.
Yeah.
Because it was, given it wasn't given a conditional use permit at that time. It was considered agricultural and said that's allowed in the village commercial and go do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's still there from what you tell me.
On School Street?
Yeah,
No, it's gone.
it's not,
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
But there might be others, you know.
We're not currently licensing and regulating, so,
And that was one of my questions was, are we gonna address existing operations that we know or don't know about? Because in the past, we didn't know, in some regards, we were prohibited from knowing.
Yeah.
But if we're going to manage them as, it's kind of hinted at in here, then maybe we need to, have some words that cover them. Require them to come in within a certain amount of time and get a conditional use permit.
I
I
don't think
we
that,
can for medical side. All of that regulation was permitted on adult use side, but there's very little regulation we're allowed to impose on the medical use side.
Are you kidding me?
Nope,
We can't regulate a grow facility.
I think we can.
Okay, so there might be one out there that is not registered with the town, has not been declared. And my point was that
Yeah, I think
we should probably address it.
yeah.
It might be caregiver.
If it's, if we have caregiving activities happening and dispensaries associated with them already happening, that's a different animal than a facility, but if it's an actual facility, I think we can have, regulation around that. And we can include that in our ordinance, and we can say, people currently operating here's your window to register and get your license or whatever, get your license. So back to whether, are we good with, we're gonna have one counseling center and up to one in village commercial, one counseling office?
I see nothing wrong with the counseling office, people wanna talk to each other, let them talk.
No, one council office in village
Should have
commercial is
like as
fine.
many as you want, because it's not like there's any plan.
Well, it's that we would want the opportunity for another organization or business to have space available for what it wants to do in the town, I don't know, that's the idea is that,
What I mean is like, when it comes, I think, I don't know if that's possible, but like when it comes to counseling centers, since it's not something that you're selling a product or, you're not, getting anybody's
don't
time,
have to
like
get a
that
number.
can be,
we don't have to quantify that.
yeah, that would be like, you can have as many as you
So
want.
maybe we're only gonna impose a quantity restriction on facilities.
Right.
Okay,
That's what
and
I'm
how
saying.
many would we like to have?
Facilities,
Facility being what?
Manufacture, cultivate, and test.
I don't know why we need any in town.
Oh my gosh, you guys are killing me.
Yeah, are we doing a 1 hour check-in since at least one of us got to interject and can the rest of us interject? Because I know I'm gonna vote whatever I'm hearing down, because, at the other meeting, I heard one of the first things was that it wasn't a majority vote. Well, it was, the only two people that voted were the two people suing the town and the one who just interjected. So we actually don't want any kind of medical facility, we want the most restricted. So everything I have heard is absolute no.
But we do have an ordinance in place now, so we can change the ordinance, but we do have a medical use ordinance in place today.
So it cool.
So let's try to keep this, the
We-
reason I
whatever you
wanna
need.
keep this
Yeah, that was
to
just a short
the
interjection.
planning
since I heard
board
another one.
is because I wanna get through this.
And I wanna say.
If we let you guys
spend an
talk,
hour and,
we'll
I
never
don't think any
get
of us
through
agree
this.
with what we're hearing at all.
And we'll never have an ordinance. So I wanna get an ordinance. So let's just keep this to the planning board if we can. When we're done, then talk, but I'm just really trying to get something done.
Yeah, just a short
Because
interjection.
we otherwise won't get anything done. I don't mean to cut people off, but.
The when I asked about the number of establishments, when we went through the list, we just talked about that we were gonna cut retail stores, no, cut dispensaries, no, but we said okay to the medical counseling office, and we said okay to the
Cultivation, manufacturing.
manufacturer, and then when I just said it again, you said, I'm not sure why we have any. And so that's back to step number one, which is, to your point, are
Well,
we
this
just
is-
cutting it all?
This is what happens when time goes by and you get time to think about it for 2 weeks and say,
I feel like,
you know,
yeah, we shouldn't go backwards.
why are we?
I just mean from 5 minutes ago, you agreed to that.
I mean, in general, we shouldn't
How
go
many could you
backwards.
say?
We've had one, that in our old ordinance, we allowed one,
So-
we shouldn't
In
go
the
backwards.
existing ordinance, we had one.
Yeah, here's, based on the charter that the town has given us.
Yep.
It was no to recreational, which we've done.
Yep.
We don't have a charter that says no to medical. In fact, some medical marijuana businesses have already been allowed in the town. So I feel that our charter is to allow some medical establishments in the town. Probably want to be on the more conservative side. And then the town will get an opportunity to vote on that, and they can completely vote it down and say, no, we don't want any. You know, which, you know, could happen, but right now, I'm just working off of what I feel our charter is, and you know, I think the 3, if we change the 4 to a 3, so we would allow a cultivation facility, a manufacturing facility, and a testing facility, 3 of 1, you know, I guess it could be any combination, you know, but I don't feel that it's fair to put a limit on counseling offices, because they're not selling anything, and we wanna make those available to the people
No problem.
who need it,
Yeah.
right? So, in the interest of moving ahead, on page 4 and 15, if we say no more than 3, cannabis establishments, and we should qualify cannabis establishments as defined as cultivation,
It's already in there.
manufacturing, and or testing facilities.
It's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then we can, you know, if everybody's okay with that, we can keep moving.
So one
That
thing I
Highland
wanted
goes
to make clear, when this goes to town meeting, it gets voted up or down in its entirety.
Right.
We cannot amend it in town meeting.
But at public hearing,
It can
be talked about.
be talked about, but just to be clear, just so we all understand that.
Right, because once we finish this,
Yep.
the process will be that we have a public hearing on it.
Right.
And we'll have the opportunity to make changes to it if the public hearing seems to be a legitimate, surrogate for a town voting meeting, then we might wanna make changes to it before we take it to a town meeting. for a
Right, we
vote.
would have a
Didn't say anything, but I wasn't the first to say anything, and everyone around me was getting antsy
No,
because
that's
we
being
were,
sick.
because we were dancing around for about an hour with questions about odor and weird back and forth,
No,
so we just wanted to touch base, I
I
think.
just meant that you hear that we can amend our proposed ordinance after commentary during an official public hearing, and that, if you would like to come and participate in the official public hearing, then the procedural step is we can amend the ordinance if that is proposed, if the public commentary at that.
Yeah, that's what I meant by, I understand the scope of a public hearing.
So we are on page 4, and we're an hour into our meeting, and if we're gonna get through 15 pages,
Right,
Well, we don't need to go through 15
But-
pages, because we
but-
just struck 8 of them. So we're on we're almost done.
Okay.
Tracy,
Yes.
just rewording of D to no more than 4 cannabis establishments are
Three.
permitted. Highlands was gonna strike, right?
That's all that's taken care of already.
All right,
It's all
okay.
modified.
All right.
I'm tracking right along. It's
Okay.
not adult use, it's only
That all
medical.
goes
We're
away.
out of
That
Highlands.
comes out of that sentence.
Like, you can't track me what we've changed since we walked in the door. I'm not editing in real time.
Before it goes to, before it
Yes,
goes to.
yes, I'm 100% with you. I just
Okay, we'll see where we go.
wonder if,
So, what's up?
Being overwhelming.
in the interest of achieving forward movement,
Yes,
that sticks.
yes. Let's keep going.
Well, might we wanna,
Do you wanna vote on things as we go along, or?
no, but are we sure we wanna stick with what we've talked about so far?
I think we're good so far, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
This is a rowdy group.
Okay, so, as far then as distance requirements,
Yep.
we've said that these establishments, so right now we're referring to any of those facilities, so it's a cultivate, manufacture, testing facility. And this would also apply to the counseling office, because it's technically an establishment. It can't be 1,000 feet from a school, a drug or alcohol treatment facility, a child care center, any other cannabis establishment or establishment of a, like, ownership.
Yep,
It can't be 100 feet from a residence, but we're going to change that in the rural district to allow for and we're gonna change primary use, because if you can live on your own land, you can live on the land where you have a facility if you're the owner. We've also said that the size of the establishment cannot exceed 5,000 square feet, and particularly this is thinking of the facility, because I don't think a counseling establishment would do that, but that still applies. And that you can only have one on a single lot or parcel, except that a testing facility, if you have one, can be co-located with cultivation or manufacturing. So it means if you have your 10-acre lot in the rural district, you can have manufacturing and testing together, or you can have cultivation and testing together.
And that altogether, they cannot
Exceed
exceed
5,000 square feet. And this is, the size requirement, these limitations were commentary from our last meeting, and the number can be, this is for discussion tonight.
yep,
I will comment, that number is, I
And
looked
it's
up
on the-
basically of, what sizes are these facilities? Because I didn't know, so I looked up, it is a
It's a
smaller
small
one.
one.
It's like 70% of facilities are usually bigger than that. So it allows for some, but it's pretty
Small one.
restrictive.
We tried, when we were doing all these, we were with a conservative eye, so we were looking for a small facility. The principal use is stricken, because we're not requiring that right now, because if you have a facility, you're allowed to now live on the lot, then the odors and the electromagnetic interference we've already talked about. And then the next, the number 2 on page 5 is talking about the licensing requirements. These are the performance, so you have to have a license, your hours of operation, your signage, medical use is signage, little I. So under that is adult use, which is now gone. These are tax line, or tax bill, so that the town doesn't incur any direct costs.
And almost all of these, except for the licensing, have been in, like, the last 3 or 4 drafts. So they're all.
They've been consistently carried
Yeah.
forward. And then the number 3 on page 7, this is our planning board process for an applicant. So when somebody wants a CUP, they have to still meet the regular CUP from the land use article 8. It's site plan review under 11, so here's the part that, would apply to the our regular CUP application. And then the little III are the additional provisions because of the operation of this type of facility, or establishment. So these are the additional operations management, manual and safety plan, and what it's to include, the odor control plan and what it's to include. The C is talking about the authorization between the local and state and proving those out. The sheriff's approval of the safety plan. D is the addition of all of the provisions about the disclosures for entities and LLCs. I think that was something that you actually brought up. So that's all included of all the different kind of disclosures depending on the type of entity. That's all the green language. And that it has to be maintained and produced at any time upon request. And then number 4 is going to talk about the procedure for obtaining your license, paying your fees. The select board we talked about is that entity, and your taxes have to be current to get your license, so you can't be delinquent. You have to provide information needed to determine if you're in compliance. They revoke your license if they're not. And then the F is the home cultivation for adult use, because that is the only adult use activity that we cannot prohibit. So the F is straight from all prior drafts, all of the regulations associated with that, because we cannot prohibit it. So we can't change it.
Airlock, I would say it's pretty comprehensive. I don't know of other ordinances that have more, like, applicant, like, the layout, the application process and the licensing, with more detail, so I think this is a pretty detailed approach to this overall. Obviously there are things we can change and adjust, but, Tracy did a lot of hard work on that. That's a good job though, you're a volunteer, you get way more kudos.
All of this is about the chemicals, the gas, the chemicals, ventilation, waste, so this is all for your home use, like inside your own home with your place. And the definitions are in development, you'll see at the setup, we try to introduce the key terms so that as you're reading it, you understand what we're talking about. So we restructured the beginning of the ordinance to make it clear, at the very beginning, like we were talking about, so we user friendly. And now it'll just be revised to strike all of the prohibited activity on the adult use side and to limit the establishments under the medical use side, and we'll push it down to what comes out tonight with those changes.
Does anybody on the board have any questions or observations or concerns?
So we decided on 3, excluding the company.
Yes, unlimited on that, we're not making a limitation. What we'll need to add or talk about is, the additional provision on capturing the existing facilities. So if there is an existing facility, here's what they do for to get a license, and we'll just put it for an applicant or, owner currently operating, blah, 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 does X. So that, I'll add that as Bob mentioned.
So do we want to wait to vote on this until after we get a clear, clean copy, so we know exactly what we're voting on? Do you think that would be a good idea, Matt?
I know.
Yeah, I agree, I think we're all in,
One more look at it.
in concert on the changes that we've talked about tonight. I
Yeah.
don't think we need to vote on that, and I think it would be great to do exactly what you said. Two things, one, get a clean copy and vote on it, and then you wanted to, have the public, have an opportunity to,
If we decide that's where we wanna go, well then, with the ordinance, then we'll open it up, because that will be, we will have completed what we needed to do for work tonight. Yes, Michaela?
For next time, if you're looking at a clean ordinance, a cleaned up ordinance, I'm guessing there might be additional time. Do you want me to prepare additional LD 2003 stuff for
Please.
next time? Okay.
I'm hoping that this will be just, a vote. And, you know, we've had our discussion here on the board level. We will hear public input, but, yes, I'm hoping we'll be done with this within 5 or 10 minutes of the opening of the meeting, and then we will go on to the LD 2003.
I wanted to ask that before,
Thank you.
yeah, so I had a good direction there.
Yep,
Michaela,
thank
I
you.
will make these changes and run them by you, so that you just make sure I caught everything that we discussed tonight. But I have good notes that I know where I'm supposed to, but we reverse ordered our work, so instead of Michaela revising, I review, I'm revising, and she's reviewing.
Great.
One
Thank you very much.
One thing I still had, I forgot, the within 30 days of receipt of authorization from the town of Baldwin, from the state. That is a bit short, cause here, OCP can be really backed up.
So it should say 45, because they can, or ask for an extension, maybe,
So we're
so that
looking
we
at-
have to have a point of contact.
Page 7, item C,
Yeah,
within 30 days of receipt of authorization from the town of Baldwin.
I
Right,
think 60
provide
days.
evidence of all required state authorizations or ability to provide same within 30 days of receipt of authorization from the town of Baldwin.
Or the
If the-
ability.
If the local authorization is required in advance of the applicant's ability to obtain final authorization from the state.
I'll reword it, but basically it's like the tail and the
Yeah,
dog, the thing.
Who goes which first, and
Yeah.
right.
So
whether
I
it's
think
30 or
it,
45
I think it
days.
can be 45, or the applicant just comes back to update us on status.
Yeah.
So
We need
that
to
we
stay in
are
touch.
communicating, yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's all from the board, we're all set. Okay, so, you've seen where we think we're going. And now, if anybody would like to comment, I think we got our hour and 20 minutes in, and very productively done. And thank the board for that, I appreciate it.
I of course have a comment, I always do.
Yes,
The public hearing that we already had, the last
no,
week.
we didn't, that was a
The
regular
previous
meeting.
one for the warrant, for the,
moratorium.
Oh, okay, yes,
everybody that showed up, a high percentage have said, we don't want it.
yeah.
And I don't feel like our message was heard
You don't have to-
completely. I don't want manufacturing, I don't want any kind of business aspects of marijuana growing in the town. And I don't think I'm alone.
Okay,
And I have tried to get people here from both sides of the world.
yeah,
Only people showing up are the people that don't want it. So I guess, I just wanna make sure that that's very well heard.
okay.
Far from it.
What?
This ain't, I'm
Far
not
from
alone.
it.
But I
Okay,
mean, I'm the one that's usually the one speaking up, and I try to get people here to speak up and speak your piece.
Well, we can speak at the public meeting, right?
oh, absolutely.
And that's the time to do it.
So what do we tax?
I'm giving you the
I got
opportunity.
it.
Why don't you guys tax these people?
I'm giving the opportunity to.
I say, let it to them. I say, if you guys gonna have pot growing in this town, tax the living shit out of them. Okay? I don't care.
Hmm?
Let's be a deterrent. If you're gonna
Well, I
die,
mean, it
I know
affects
she's
me.
probably for it, I shouldn't say that, but she's seen.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so-
business in the town,
That's
so
right,
why
so
would I not be for it?
75% tax, come on
Because you
in.
didn't grow up here.
Come
and
on
you're
in,
not part of
grow
the
as much
culture.
as you want,
So
grow as
that's
much
a
as
big
you want,
thing. The
and I'm
culture in
taking
this area is a
75% of
big
your
thing.
profit.
That's why people come here to get away
And then we
from
can
all
fix the
that.
roads,
We don't,
and maybe do a little upkeep in this town that's falling apart.
like the power. How are they gonna support the power? The power grid doesn't even support my home now. How's it gonna support a big growth?
Yeah.
It's a CMP problem?
Absolutely.
It's supply and
Like you said,
demand, but they have to
tax
fix
them.
everything
Let's make
anyway.
a deterrent.
So now my
They'll
electric
fix
bill's gonna go up because somebody wants to put a big facility in, and I have to get penalized because of it? That's some straight up bullshit.
Have you guys looked into the fire suppression? If one of these places go up with CO2 canisters, have you ever thrown an aerosol can into a fire? That's what's gonna happen. Do we have the fire companies to put these things out?
Do we have the
What
police
about
or
water
anybody?
mitigation? Fungicides, pesticides, fertilizers, how are they gonna mitigate that? There's a creek runs through that property.
There's no outdoor growing in the ordinance allowed.
Where are you gonna get rid of the wastewater, even indoor? Where's that going?
Septic,
That leads into the ground.
And it's
Who's gonna
also-
police that?
and also testing standards,
Who's gonna police it?
You won't-
Buy some
the
Part
MCP
95 like the
testing
Chinese.
standards-
Right.
Wait,
All right.
Go out of here.
There's also internal,
rather than get
like you can do a
adversarial-
complete
I
closed
don't
loop
want that
for
to
these.
go, these fires are a nightmare to put
Steve,
out.
Please,
Okay, that's
everybody, you know, if we're gonna get an adversarial discussion going, which is not a problem, but please address me, and I will address whoever you wanna talk to, so that we just, okay? Yes.
So I do have a question on, it seems like the general consensus is, given the circumstances that marijuana is allowed in the state, there's certain things that you have to allow, you're trying to regulate it as much as possible. And then moving forward, getting rid of dispensaries and adult use, which are the two most regulated portions. It's the one area where you guys can have full disclosure, have full insight, tax them. You can't tax caregivers really. They're protected. You're asking for regulation, but taking away from the areas where you have an opportunity to regulate, to tax, to actually have real control. And I'm wondering just what the thinking is there.
You heard us.
Well, I didn't hear that addressed, so I'm wondering, given that, where your thinking is on that.
Well, we did have a speaker a couple of meetings ago, come from the state agency and actually did a presentation for the board. That was not a meeting that was as well attended by the public as this meeting or our last meeting, where we were educated about the issue that you're raising. The fact that we were educated about as it relates to regulation is that on the recreational adult use side, the town actually has better controls and more ability to regulate and tax and, however, you were here at the last meeting, but, there was a discussion, I even posed a question to someone in our audience about that, that there is unfortunately a little bit less of an ability for the town to take a direct regulatory role on the medical use side. And both of those things can be true at the same time, and the town can still have, a right to enact its ordinance.
I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying, in the medical, registered dispensaries is an area in which you do have more power to regulate. There are more regulations by the state. They are more disclosures required through them. There's more testing requirements.
Yep.
There's more environmental concerns
That the town
addressed through
doesn't pay
them.
for. Yep. I
That's
know.
all covered by the caregiver in the state. That seems like if you're going to allow it, the logical step, being able to control it, address a lot of these concerns where the state is providing that backing and allowing you guys the opportunity to have really a lot more say. I guess I'm confused on the thinking of allowing then moving forward the caregiver stuff where you have very little, if not no say.
It's
not really an issue of regulation. What you saw us vote on tonight is that the town gave us a charter, okay? The charter was at a specific vote that they didn't want recreational marijuana.
But they did want dispensaries. That's all in the books currently.
And they did not disallow the medical aspect of things, and the medical aspect of things is already here in the town.
The dispensary.
So, we're working with that, off of that, trying to put in some reasonable, ordinances and rules to manage the medical aspect of marijuana, which is already here. Recognizing that the forces that be in the town are actually seeming to want to eliminate all marijuana, which they will have the opportunity to do, to voice their opinion at a public hearing that we'll have on this ordinance, and then in the vote. But in relation to this regulation argument,
just a question.
Well, here's the thing. Baldwin's a small town. Our selectmen are overwhelmed with regulations. It has gotten, exponentially more complex in just the last 10 years. And given that, the argument or the thought process to allow recreational marijuana because it is the best regulatory environment.
I'm not discussing adult use.
So
I'm not discussing adult use at all. My question was about dispensaries.
Right?
Medical dispensaries.
So I wanna let some other people express their opinions, because Dale had his hand up way long ago, and
yeah, I don't know what's appropriate for the quorum. I do know that I am uncomfortable with having two people from out of town have so much input, especially two people that have a lawsuit against the town. I don't think that they should be here to, influence anybody's opinion.
I have a right to be here.
I wasn't aware of the law.
I have an absolute right to be here.
Oh, you could be here, but your input.
And then you guys misconstrue reality, like she said that it was a majority vote when it was you two.
I'm not arguing it. I have the right, I represent people that have property in the town.
please keep it under control. Michaela, you had something you wanted to say?
Yes. One, I just wanna clarify, my earlier comment was, it was a majority, but not a 100% majority. That was my comment, which is true. And I have no stake in this, I'm just writing it and throwing out options. Secondly, I wanted to clarify, because if the town, when this ordinance goes to the town vote, whatever ordinance draft it is, if the town does not vote in this ordinance, your existing ordinance is in place and stays in place, and that existing ordinance
Allows more than
this new one.
So we need to be careful about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted
That's
to.
the opt in out. So I think that's an important point that we need to make clear, that unless we replace the existing ordinance with this ordinance, the existing ordinance remains in full force and effect. And it allows more than what we're proposing now.
That makes sense. I guess our experience has been that we move our ordinances incrementally, and that this, improves on our current ordinance, and, this is what we're in consensus on to take to the town. Is that?
moving closer to what is being given to us as public input.
So I'd like to know if there's anybody who hasn't said anything tonight who would like to talk.
Evan didn't get to finish his
Yeah.
extension.
I've gone through this, I just saw it and went through it, and I do see some things here, that need to be, need definitions, need tightening up a bit, some things that, are going to be in conflict with new state policy. But I can put that in an email and get it to you guys, just to make it easier than to take up air in the room right now.
Okay? Great.
Can you highlight the provisions in which you think that applies, just so I can flag them for myself as unfinished?
Yep.
Like, maybe if you can tell me what that is?
Yep.
Because the goal is to be in compliance.
I did get most of the definitions right from state legislative.
I did find a different one, so I started to say to the board, but didn't finish, that in the most recent draft, we did not fully update the definition section, so that is still, I didn't go through it one last time, when we take the purple out and all of that, but I appreciate it if there's a specific issue to be addressed, yeah.
Just a quick question. So, the way I'm understanding, we have to pick something, and if we don't pick anything, we're back to where we were, so we're kind of like in a pickle.
Well,
So, but why can't we strike off the grow facility? You're striking off everything else, why can't we strike that off? That's gonna bring my property value down. You guys gonna compensate me for that, or is that my tough to these then too? Everything drastically changes, except for the person who's gonna be building. It's gonna increase crime, don't tell me it's not. Go to you're gonna say no to that? Seriously? We don't even have police officers in this area, none, zero.
Were you here for the meeting from the, vice chair of the Office of Cannabis Policy?
I'm not a part of it. I don't give two shits about
Well,
part.
I'm sorry, but
It's the downfall of this
my
country.
question is, are they directed also by the governor, whose brother is a lawyer, who has supported all of this? So, that's a question.
We went by facts, so it's not propaganda.
Just had it.
It's not about property, this is fact, sorry. I mean, crime comes with all this stuff. I come from the Portland area.
That's absolutely incorrect. I mean, there's so many studies showing that. If you can show me a study or five that comes with that.
Pardon me, you got a lot of money, right? Go
Me?
buy some land somewhere else.
What are you talking about?
I don't know who this guy is right
So
here.
He's a resident of Baldwin.
Yeah.
We have no business, we're just residents here.
Something else to consider is last meeting there was.
Let's keep things calm.
Yeah, and civil.
With only one person talking at a time.
Last
Please keep
meeting there
things
was,
calm.
there was somebody that showed up here, that actually went through stuff that she works with every single day. And she works at the main medical, facility. And she said that 30% of her customers come from this area. And then all of them have issues because of marijuana and medical marijuana. She explicitly called it right out. And she gave examples, and she said she had her whole team come in and talk to her.
It's CHRP, the Community Hope and Resources for Psychosis
Marijuana psychosis.
at the Maine Medical Center, and it's the PEER program, PIER, that the woman who spoke with us.
So there is examples, factual examples, that contradict what other people are saying, that there's not gonna be any crime. Well, you know, she was almost in tears and adamant to keep this out of our town.
I think that's the one where
Are there gonna be regulations like on distribution times and?
Yeah,
I mean,
No, we're gonna vote it down.
Well, I think that I would just wanna sort of follow up on where you started your comment, which is a good comment. The point of clarification there, where you said you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place or whatever, what you have to.
Yeah, it's like, it's like
You're
you don't
stuck
go,
between what you have now and what we are
Right.
proposing.
I feel like we're being pushed to drop it, so then they can rearrange it. That's how it feels.
Well, the option, all I wanna do is clarify the impact, like what the status would be. So that you know that information. And I guess where I'm going with that is that the current ordinance and what it allows, that's been in operation for these last several years, that are allowing more things than the proposed ordinance we discussed tonight would allow. And that's already been in place and operating without the same level of regulation around that we're even proposing, and more uses and activities would be permitted. So that's already out there and it's already happening with less controls around it than what we're talking about today. So I can appreciate where you're coming from with feeling like you're choosing between the lesser of two evils, you don't like either of these options, and that's what I'm trying to speak to. I want you to understand that the effect of saying you're not gonna vote okay for this means that the current ordinance stays in place, which allows more and has less ability for us to control over it. So what you hear me saying to Joe a minute ago is, you know,
Go back to those other questions that should be zero. You don't want any of it.
yeah,
Go right back.
that's where I'm like, so, like, is this where we are?
I also think it needs to be noted that the moratorium is still in place until September, and that does not change upon the voting down of this, right? We still have till September if this gets voted down.
Yeah,
So we still have till September to rework whatever needs to be reworked. So we still have the moratorium in place.
so
Nothing still can happen until September.
Carol, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that's a wonderful, presents us, the town, with a wonderful opportunity to present this to a town meeting, have it voted down, and go to a very absolutist sort of ordinance. I mean, I think that takes the pressure off of everybody.
But I think it's premature to say that the old ordinance is automatically in place.
Well,
Because it's really not until the moratorium is in place.
Jill,
but it is today, like right now.
do a couple things. One, the town is doing exactly what it should be doing, and let's visualize the process that's going to happen. We had a marijuana ordinance that's still in effect, more permissive than anything we're looking at here. There was a lot of pressure, public pressure and state pressure, to revise the marijuana ordinance, and because of the CUPs that we were having to deal with, to consider recreational marijuana. Now, the select board, with their decent leadership, said, hey, we need to put a moratorium in effect. And they did. And we listened to people at the moratorium, and we hired Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission to help us create a broad spectrum ordinance outline for consideration as to what we had to choose from in terms of recreational and medical, okay? Now, I was here for the last meeting. I heard what everybody had to say. I saw the vote. So when we got in here tonight and I took a look at this, I said, wow, you know, this is great, because it really lays out for us what recreational and medical are. And the first question in the discussion we had all night was to, okay, now that we see this, we eliminated recreational from this. Now here's how it's going to work from what I understand and what opportunity you will all have. We're gonna revise this. We're gonna vote on having a public hearing. Public hearing will be announced on the town website, and it will be announced in the shopper's guide. We'll have it in the big auditorium, and all the people in the town, for and against, can come out. It'll be professionally managed. Everybody will have an opportunity to talk and express their perspectives. The likely outcome of that, if it goes according to what we've been hearing, is the planning board will take all of that input and will decide whether this ordinance is what we want to have the town actually vote on. And we're probably wise enough to say, you know what? This is going to get voted down if the same people that are at this public hearing come to the town meeting where we actually vote on it. And then we have nothing, we're back to what's already on the books, which is worse than this. So it's pretty unlikely that this is what we would take to a town vote. So if we hear what we're hearing now, and what we heard last meeting, and what we hear at a official public hearing, the likely outcome is that this will be changed, and that you won't be voting on this, but it would be voting on an ordinance that eliminates both the medical and the recreational, and changes what's in the ordinance today. I try to visualize what's happening and where things are gonna go, and that's the process that we'll go through. But the important thing to understand is that we can't just change it all in one fell swoop and say, there's no medical marijuana now. You know, we have to have we really couldn't change that based on the public hearing where we voted on the moratorium. Because that wasn't a hearing for the ordinance, it was a hearing for the moratorium. And we still haven't had a hearing, an official public hearing, on a marijuana ordinance.
I think we got a good opinion though from many people in the.
We did, and we're moving in that direction.
But the vote we had was 100% against it. He even commented, he's never ever had a vote like that before.
It was, and that was for the moratorium.
Yeah.
That was for the moratorium.
But still, it was 100%.
Yeah, and so, you know, we hear you, and that is the process that we're gonna go through. And it seems that you know, we're not the ones really deciding on what our ordinance for marijuana is gonna be. It's gonna be the town, but we have to go in a stepwise process.
So when you set that date, I'm gonna make sure every person I see in town knows that date and gets it.
Great.
Good. That's
Great.
wonderful. Because the more that public hearing represents an official town meeting, the better the input that we get, and the more we can fix things to be aligned with what the town is telling us.
Freddie?
I think we ought to let the planning board do their work and do it, and we'll come to the town meeting and we'll give our opinion, and then we'll vote. And the people who wanna do the marijuana, now I understand that they'd like to make money, but they don't know what a town is all about, and that's my opinion. We should not have any marijuana in this town. The grade has changed completely from what it was back in the sixties. I mean, this is bad stuff now. I know you guys don't think so, but it is. But they're in here just to make money. Most of us have been here all our lives, and we don't appreciate people coming in here and telling us how to run our town and change our lives that we have enjoyed for years and years and years. So, we just fight back and forth, but you won't get it.
Thank you, Freddie.
Yeah. So don't browbeat this anymore, just go home and do your work. I was on the planning board myself for over 20 years. I know how the system works. Glad I'm not here now.
Thank you. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made.
And seconded. All those in favor of adjourning? Thank you. Thank all of you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Okay, Fred.